Let me say just a few brief words about East Lothian, which is the lovely, beautiful flat plain just to the right of Edinburgh, just to the left of Edinburgh. East Lothian is it's a county of small towns. Musselburgh, Haddington, Tranent, Dunbar, Prestonpans, North Berwick, Cockenzie. Small towns where people think hard, work hard, not a big metropolitan area. It is a county of radical tradition. Because where we are on the eastern side of Scotland, for centuries we have looked out to the North Sea, to Europe, to the Baltic. So it's our position on Europe, our outward looking towards Europe and the rest of the world, I think comes from that geographical position. And that's what animates me in particular in terms of building positive links with Europe, with the EU. Those trade links, of course, brought in new ideas. So it's the county that brought in Presbyterianism to Scotland. We had the earliest mining communities, which added to our radical tradition. We are the county that gave the world John Knox. They gave the world Andrew Fletcher, who was the only person who could lead the opposition to the Act of Union. And I have in this context to mention, I think perhaps the most renowned MP from East Lothian, John P. McIntosh, who passed away in 1974, but still remembered, a great constitutionalist, a great professor of constitutional law. McIntosh sat on the Labour benches, but I was very lucky to have an old friend of his and his former campaign manager helping me in my campaign. And I've always said that McIntosh is a hero of mine in terms of his commitment genuinely to constitutional reform in the UK and his commitment to Home Rule for Scotland. And McIntosh was very clear that Home Rule was something different from devolution. Devolution, piecemeal devolution, granting a concession here, a concession there, a change here and a change there, has hardly resolved the issue of the Scottish desire for self-government. It's been grudging. And if there has been tension on both sides of the chamber, and if sometimes there has been argument and discussion and debate and fractiousness, it's because those of us on this side of the chamber feel that we are getting piecemeal concessions. We want self-government. The majority of people in Scotland want self-government. We have voted in the referendum last year for self-government, home rule within the Union, but it has to be home rule. McIntosh argued for that, and perhaps if we had that in '74 and the 1970s, instead of the piecemeal drip that we have ever since, maybe we would have moved forward, instead of having the debate that we're now having. East Lothian, I've heard members vie with each other for which is the most beautiful constituency in the UK. They're all beautiful. But in East Lothian, we have a saying, it's been current for several hundred years. East Lothian is the garden of Scotland. And it is. In the east of the constituency, lush volcanic soil has created a wonderful arable agriculture, created great dairy farms. Southward, the dark Lammermuir hills, which keep the wind off, and where the sheep still graze. North, lovely seacoast, where our fishing industry is still important. We have a wonderful agriculture, a wonderful verdant county. And I'm here representing our farmers, and let me say, and I say this to the Right Honourable Member for Wokingham, the farmers in East Lothian are not fans of the referendum. They're not fans of a withdrawal from the EU. They're hard-working. They don't depend on simple subsidy. They work for their living. But the uncertainties that are going to be produced by a referendum and the possibility of Scotland being taken out of the EU, though most Scots will vote to stay in, that is the primary worry of our farmers. And one reason I'm standing here today is to argue in favour of staying in the EU and defending the ability of our farmers to access that market. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, I've not been sent here to give you a travellogue. There is a question I was asked time and time again on the doorstep in East Lothian. Why is it that Scotland's garden, the breadbasket of Scotland, why is it that every night hundreds of children in East Lothian will go to bed hungry? If there's any place in this United Kingdom where there's a contradiction between the failure of this government's policy, the austerity policies pursued by this government, the welfare cap imposed by this government, if there's anywhere in this United Kingdom where there's a gap between that and the ability to create food and create jobs and create economic activity, it is in East Lothian. We cannot be the breadbasket of Scotland and have children go to bed hungry every night. The government's policy, dogged policy of austerity, austerity here, austerity, attempted austerity in Europe, it simply is leading to divisions, social divisions across the UK. I know that the government benches, and particularly the Right Honourable Member for Woking, I'm using him as a foil, but then I've spent many decades reading his economics, and I want to respond rationally to him. We, on this side, believe that we have to balance, we have to maintain a serious approach to the deficit. That's not in contention. Our opposition to the austerity policies of the Chancellor are that the Chancellor's austerity policies are an ideological fixation. It is simply, the Chancellor wants to run a primary budget surplus out of ideological intent. Yes, we have to reduce the deficit. Yes, we have to reduce the budget, but we can do it in an intelligent, rational fashion that doesn't lead to the social crisis that is emerging in places like East Lothian. We can easily run. I mean, why we shouldn't run a primary budget surplus at the moment is quite simply because all we're doing is growing. We are growing. I admit that we were growing roughly on trend, and even that is questionable over the next period. It's foolhardy to try and run a primary budget surplus if we're only growing at trend. What we should be doing is running a more modest deficit, probably around 2–2.5% of GDP, roughly on trend, and continue that to give ourselves the resources to solve some of the structural problems in the economy, like our massive current account trade deficit, our low productivity, do that and grow the economy in a structural sense, and that then gives us the resources ultimately to pay down the deficit. I would rather do it in that rational, conscious fashion rather than have the ideological knee-jerk. I've wandered far, Deputy Madam Speaker, and you've been very patient. So I'll draw to the close in this sense. We are here to have a dialogue. We are not here to demand. We're not here to rampage. We're here to have a rational dialogue. In the end, what I would like to achieve in my tenure here, as well as representing as best I can the people of East Lothian, I would like, in some sense, if we could, to help heal the divisions between the four great nations of these islands. We want our self-government. I think at some period, and this is my final point to the Right Honourable Member for Wokingham, I would like to see an English Parliament voting on English laws. That's what comes from Scotland having independence. I think we will see, within a generation, 4 independent parliaments in this Atlantic archipelago. We will cooperate. We will have a common market. We will discuss this and that. We will probably have a common defence policy. But we will achieve that by recognising the right of the 4 nations, and certainly recognising the right of Scotland to be self-governing, to be independent. And then the family of nations can treat each other as equals. Until we do that, we will continue to have to argue here for Scottish self-government. We will continue to have to argue here for our rights. But once we are a separate family, we all come together as 4 nations. And the ability, what is wonderful about these islands is to have 4 separate, wonderful nations, vibrant, creative, together, cooperating together as separate nations. We will challenge the world. But unless we do that, we will continue to be caught up in the constitutional debate that's been going on for the last 100 years. Deputy Madam Speaker, I commend the bill, but the bill says that Europe is a family of nations, but so is the family of British nations. But to be a genuine family, we have to have Scotland self-governing with its own sovereign parliament.
Yeah.
Mr. Tom Tugendar.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, for calling me to speak in this important debate. And may I offer my praise to the Honourable Member for East Lothian, whose tour de force certainly demonstrated the strength of speaking skills in the northern part of our nation.